Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into Hoopsville as we are on the air post-Thanksgiving for our official third show of the season, our unofficial second show of the season, if you've been tuning in to all the excitement, as it were, in the opening start of our season. It's been a little bit touch and go, but I appreciate you all tuning in and taking the time to join us. Thank you. If you got questions for us, you can look at the bottom of your screen to find out how to interact with us. You can join us via email, hoopsville@d3sports.com. You can join us on X/Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at D3Hoopsville or the hashtag Hoopsville. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube, where we're live streaming the show in simulcast, facebook.com/Hoopsville, youtube.com/D3Hoopsville. You can also find us on the Team One Sports app, thanks to Huddle Blue Frame, on Android TV, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and Roku. I am your host, Dave McHugh, as I have been in our 21st season, the longest show of its kind, covering Division III athletics. The trick tonight's going to be, does my voice last? It has been an interesting week or so. I don't know if I've just overused my voice in the last few months. I did a tally of the fall and called something like 50 different sports, whether PA announcing or broadcasting, in a 6-week span. And I might be underestimating that number. I did, 5 volleyball games weekend before Thanksgiving. And I love this work. I really do. But my voice apparently isn't. So we're going to see if it gets through it. We can tell you I'm going to cheat. There's a couple of pre-recorded interviews tonight. But we do have a few live guests as well. We'll talk about them first, getting on the show tonight. Our guests that we try to get on the very first show. Caleb Kimbrough of Hamden-Sydney will be joining us in a wee bit. The now number 2 ranked Hamden-Sydney men's basketball program. We will talk to Caleb Kimbrough coming up about his program. He was kind enough to join us on the first show, just couldn't get him on the air. Looking forward to chatting with him. These are not, by the way, in order. Also, we'll be talking to Jenna Cosgrove of the 5th-ranked Rhode Island College women's basketball team. The Week 1 poll hasn't gotten out just yet on that one. We will, if we get that mid-show, we will certainly update you with those latest poll results. We'll also talk to, the now number 7 Keene State Owls men's basketball coach, or acting men's basketball coach, David Hastings. They fell from 4th to 7th in a lot of movement in the top 25. And we'll talk to Millikin women's basketball coach, Olivia Lett, the 24th ranked in the preseason poll on the women's side. So those are our 4 guests tonight. We do have, as you may all know, a new top 25 on the men's side. We'll certainly have some reactions to that. One that I'm quickly going to jump out there and say, Randolph-Macon is out of the top 25. They are sitting unofficially in the second receiving votes category, about 9 points out of the top 25. Illinois College is in the in the first slot out of the top 25, with just 2 votes out. And plenty, 5 teams, in fact, getting first place votes in the men's top 25. We'll talk more about that. We will not have our panel on. We haven't gotten our panel up and running just yet to talk men's and women's basketball top 25. We will get our panel in here and have them join us in the near future. We're hoping next week, next Monday, will be our first time to chat with some of the guys on our men's side. And then probably the following week, we'll talk to some of the women's side. And then we're going to just make more sense, as apparently my screen may have just frozen for all of you. And it might make more sense to sorry, we may have lost our camera, but we'll work on it. But anyway, it may make more sense to have a conversation after the Christmas holiday. And I think that makes sense. We don't need to dive too deep into the top 25s too soon. But we'll still have a conversation about the top 25s or teams we're watching at the start of the season next week on the men's side, and we'll talk women's side the following week. And you see what I assume is a blurred look of my face. I apologize. Not sure what's going on there. But we will figure it out here momentarily. Just deal with it, as it were, until we can figure that out. Apparently the camera doesn't want to work. It's actually off, according to my system. So I'm going to at least put up a logo for you so you aren't freaked out by that image. There we go. Had some camera issues of late. Not really sure what's going on. We had some issues last week, and we're having issues continuing. So during the break, we'll probably try and fix that camera coming up. So the top 25 coming out on the men's side anew. The new number one team is Wisconsin Whitewater. They got 13 first place votes and moved up from 2 to 1. Hamden-Sydney jumped from 8 to 2, I'm sorry. They received 8 first place votes. That was the second most of the first place votes. John Carroll stayed steady at 3 and went to 2 first place votes. Mount Union slid up a spot to 4, receiving a first place vote. And Calvin made a big jump from 10 to 5 with 1 first place vote. Not how I voted. We can talk about that later in the program. Oswego 6, Keene State 7, NYU is 8. Excuse me. Case Western Reserve is 9. Christopher Newport fell from 1st to 10th. Guilford into the top 25 at 11, having not been in there in the preseason. WPI jumped into 12th. Wash U went from 22nd to 13th. Swarthmore went from 11th to 14th, which is interesting considering they beat NYU and are sitting behind NYU in the top 25. Granted, they have a loss that maybe isn't as strong as the NYU loss to Swarthmore. Williams went from 7th to 15th. Emory went from 19th to 16th. Redlands is in the top 25 at 17th. Trinity, Connecticut is in the top 25 at 18th. Marietta is in the top 25 at 19th. Illinois Wesleyan jumps in at 20th, which is a little surprising to me. Virginia Wesleyan jumped in. I certainly considered them. They're at 21. Oshkosh moved up from 25 to 22. Tufts is into the top 25 at 23. Trine is in the top 25 at 24. And Pomona Pitzer rounds out the top 25. All those are new. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 new top 25 teams. So falling out, previously ranked number 12, Hopkins. Previously ranked number 14, Randolph-Macon. Previously ranked 15th, Mary Hardin-Baylor. Previously ranked 16th, Wabash. Previously ranked 17th, Catholic. Previously ranked 18th, Carthage. Previously ranked 20th, East Texas Baptist. Number 21, previously North Park. Number 23, previously Claremont Scripps. And previously number 24, Middlebury. So there you go. There's a quiz for you coming. We will be testing you. Women's side, not as maybe as exciting as we have grown accustomed in terms of movement, but there's certainly plenty to talk about on the women's side. Excuse me. You're going to have to deal with that cough. I'm just warning you now. In Christopher Newport on the men's side. I'm sorry, I was talking about the women's side. Now I jumped into the wrong system there. There we go. Only lot Tufts losing to Rhode Island College, and Trinity lost to number 11 Smith. Ohio Northern lost to Wittenberg to start the season. Actually, Ohio Northern's 1-3. Lost to Wittenberg, beat Anderson, but lost to Ohio Wesleyan and Trine. Trinity, Texas lost. That was a surprise. Lost to 16th ranked Hardin-Simmons in overtime. That one caught my attention. DeSales lost its opener, but has gone undefeated since. They're 3-1. Elizabethtown is 4-1. They lost to Christopher Newport. Mary Washington is 5-1. They lost to Randolph-Macon in overtime, 60-52. Hope lost, surprise, surprise, to Wisconsin Lutheran, 79-68. That game on the road. And Messiah lost to Dickinson. They're 3-1 now in the season. The receiving votes category is a plethora of losses on the women's side. It is stunning, to say the least, on that side of things. So that's kind of the top 25. There are some scores that we're going to keep an eye on tonight throughout Division III. On the men's side, Oswego and St. Lawrence started a short time ago, or about an hour ago from when our show started. But according to the system, it hasn't started. So we literally are trying to find that score. And we will get you that as soon as we can. But that should be a pretty good battle on the men's side. Other games that jump out, I think both Wells and men's and women's programs are going to have a struggle this season. I hate to say it. Springfield's playing Bryant in a I don't know if it counts for Springfield or not, but for Bryant it certainly counts. Here we go on. We'll get into the Oswego score in a minute. On the women's side of things, a couple things that jump out. Number 6, Scranton is playing Stevens. That game just got underway. Number 14, DeSales is taking on Marywood. And by the way, Stevens and Scranton is in a tight one halfway through the first quarter. So we'll keep an eye on that As we mentioned, Oswego taking on St. Lawrence, and finally calling up live stats on that. And Oswego's got a 41-37 lead with just under 12 minutes to play. Actually, now it's 41-38. So we'll keep an eye on the Lakers as we move along. Of course, we can always take questions from you. We hope you'll join us and ask questions and whatnot. We will try and figure out our camera issues. Not sure what's going on. Hoping it's not what we had last show where it caused the computer to crash, but we'll certainly look into it nonetheless. But if you got questions, please feel free to send them our way, as it were, and we will do our best to answer them and see what you want to chat about and go from there. Again, coming up, we're going to talk to Caleb Kimbrough from Hamden-Sydney. We'll also talk to Jenna Cosgrove from Rhode Island College. We'll be talking to David Hastings, who I talked to earlier today from Keene State. Great conversation with Coach Hastings. And we will talk to Olivia Lett coming up from Millikin. By the way, of note, the Cosgrove and Hastings interviews are the ones that were pre-recorded. And I will say this now. I'm not sure which order they will run in. We're still trying to figure out one of our guests. But I don't normally ever go to the same region twice in a show, unless it's one of the bigger shows or late in the year when we are following some headlines. And I most certainly try not to go to the same conference in the same show, let alone back-to-back weekends or back-to-back shows, let alone the same show, is what I'm trying to say. And yes, I ended up in the Little East Conference twice tonight with our conversation with Rhode Island College and Keene State. That fell down to one of those where I was looking around for different headlines and stories I wanted to talk about on the men's side. Excuse me. And Keene State was a clear, obvious one there, and I jumped on it and then went, oh, that's right. Rhode Island College is on the show too. So Little East Conference getting plenty of Hoopsville love here on an early show. Quick note, by the way, for upcoming shows, we will not be on the air Thursday. I'll be traveling down or tied up, doesn't matter, in Salem, Virginia for the men's and women's soccer championships for Division III. I'll be on the call with Ira Thor that's our 6th or 7th straight year, I believe, doing this for soccer. We'll be on the call for the men's soccer championship. Second year in a row, we're not doing both championships. And third time overall, but looking forward to being down there. But I also had a meeting pop up on Thursday evening that is mandatory for one of my work jobs. So that kind of made the decision a lot easier if I was on the fence. So no show on Thursday. We'll be back here next Monday, the 4th of December, to talk things over. And again, we'll get our men's top 25 panel, or at least a panel of our men's experts on the show to talk things over. And then we'll get the women's the following week. And we'll get a couple of other guests as well. So next week on the 4th, we will talk with you, and then we will start our Thursday shows next week as well. So we'll go back to our 2 shows a week format starting next week, and then seemingly for the rest of the season. The only show that would be up in the air, honestly, is the December 21st show. We may have a lot of content that it's worth doing that. If not, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to sit back and relax and enjoy the holidays. I may have some work the next day that could have me tied up too, so we'll see what happens. But more importantly, if we can get some advertisers and sponsors and all of that in place, that will certainly drive us to do more shows. We are in conversations with many of our partners. I got an email today that I need to check, and I got another one that we'll be setting up a meeting this week and all that. So we're looking forward to bringing our usual partners online. But if you are an entity, or you know any entities out there who would like to advertise or sponsor on this show, please send them our way. We are not an expensive group in any way, shape, or form, and we certainly would welcome any contributions that makes what we do better. So here we are. Send them our way, and we look forward to hearing from you. You can use the Hoopsville at d3sports.com link. If you're just tuning in, wondering why you're not seeing my lovely face, the camera has gone sideways, and so we will be trying to figure that out here in the upcoming break before talking to Caleb Kimbrough. Otherwise, it's going to be strange for all of you because I won't be on camera, though Caleb can see me via another camera, though we may have to change. It's complicated. Phil Nagley joining us. Says, random non-D3 question, why aren't you doing both sides of the action for soccer? The simple answer is they wanted two different crews. Since the championships are split, I certainly wanted to still be play-by-play and join my friend Monica Moore for the women's side. I love working with Monica. We have done lacrosse together, and in the Baltimore, D.C. thing, we have done a number of things together. You guys don't have any idea how many broadcasts Monica and I have been partnered on over the years, and she's good in all roles. Actually, I just saw her at the CAA Volleyball Championships at Towson in Division I. She was doing the analyst role for that while I was doing public address announcing. Anyway, she's going to be down there. Jeremy's going to be on the call for the women's side, which will be Salem's 100th Division III NCAA championship. And Ira Thor and I will have the soccer championships for men, which will be the 101st. If you're curious, it's Thursday and Saturday for the semifinals and finals for women. It is Friday, Sunday for the men. And of course, reminder, Salem will be hosting the 50th Stag Bowl coming up later in December. Also, don't forget, switching back to basketball, we've got the D3Hoops.com Classic coming up in Las Vegas between Christmas and New Year's. We have not talked about it enough now. We will certainly talk about it a little further down the road. But we've got some heavy hitters, if you have not seen it already, for that tournament. Should be an awesome event in Vegas, and we're already starting to put together the teams for next year. If you're interested, you can get in touch with me, and I'd be happy to get you in touch with who you need to talk to, as I know quite a few great teams who are interested in joining us in Vegas next year. On top of, I'll give you a hint if you haven't seen it, Case Western Reserve and Oswego will be in Vegas and playing one another on the men's side of things. So it should be an awesome event, and I'm looking forward to it. Quick side note before we take a break and figure out the camera and talk to Caleb Kimbrough. I was pleasantly surprised and very happy. I wouldn't say pleasantly surprised and very happy. That's a weird way of saying that. So if you don't know, I've been the public address announcer at Goucher College basketball now in my 26th season. And walked into the gym. I got a little bit of a heads up on some of these things, but I walked into the gym with a new head coach, third ever in men's program history, Justin Klingman, former Scranton basketball player. His mother did pretty darn well as a basketball player at Scranton and a one-year interim head coach. His father's a really darn good soccer coach. Justin had been the associate head coach at Catholic before getting the job at Goucher. But some things have changed. First off, brand new chairs, which is kind of a new thing for all the team and for all the Russ, and it's very comfortable. Love it. But the team is now on a different bench, and they don't want the Bulls music as their intro music, so be it. It's strange to me because I'm very much used to that theme, having the previous 25 years. But clearly it's an idea of let's get rid of the bad juju, maybe. Maybe there's some bad juju here. So they switched benches, and they're changing up the music, and I'm fascinated to see how it plays out. I saw them play against Eastern Mennonite, and the Royals got the win, but Goucher was certainly in the fight, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the rest of the season in the Gopher Dome's doing. And I'll be doing both men's and women's games in conference during double headers, so that'll be fun to get back into it. They've got a new women's coach there as well, former Birmingham Southern coach, and there's a topic we'll have to talk more about in December as well. Future of Birmingham Southern and others. Going to take a break. When we come back, Caleb Kimbrough will join us, and hopefully you'll be able to see me again if we can figure out why our camera doesn't want to work. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. Plenty more ahead on this third or second edition of Hoopsville. Back with more after this. The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC 1927. That's NABC.com or NABC 1927 on social media.
I used to never really talk, ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
If I lose, I'll respond with respect.
If I win, I'll back it up with humility.
If I fail, I'll rise up with honor. It's tough for us to put it all on the line.
Don't undo my hard work with poor sportsmanship.
Respect. It's the name of the game.
Coach of the Year, Administrator of the Year, All-America Team, Wade Trophy. The WBCA doesn't just honor coaches, but players, administrators, and much more. The WBCA strives to honor those who have contributed to the advancement of women's basketball. Celebrate the present, honor the past, look to the future.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Sorry, you're not seeing my face right now. We are going to try and fix about midway through the show. Tried to quickly fix the camera. I think we've got one of those old cams, and it's not even that old. Just that's starting to fail. I think that's basically it. We'll fix it. We got a backup that we can go to, or 2 or 3 other options in my closet. But you don't need to see my lovely face right now. I got a face for radio anyway. So we're going to keep going. Talking men's basketball. The season started with an absolute bang this year. Number 1, Christopher Newport reconnecting with Hamden-Sydney in a game that was certainly booked before the playoffs came out last year. And then the playoffs showed up, and Christopher Newport eliminated Hamden-Sydney from their magical season. And so it added a little bit of flair, as it were, to the season. Made things a wee tad bit more interesting. And as a result, the first game of the season, and Hamden-Sydney comes out and says, you may be number 1, you may be the defending national champions. You're at our place, and you will be leaving now with a loss to start the year, and it won't be close. Unbelievable start, to say the least. And as a result, as we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, Hamden-Sydney has moved up to number 2 in the top 25 in the first in-season poll of the year. They're 4-0. They followed it up with an easy win over Greensboro, a good battle with what may be a surprising Widener squad this season, and then a win over Rose-Hulman. Those last 2, both in Worcester. They've got conference play coming up. There's plenty to talk about there. So joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is the head coach of the second-ranked Hamden-Sydney men's team. It is Caleb Kimbrough. And Caleb, really appreciate you taking the time to join us despite the challenges we had in the opening show. Thanks again. And it may even be better to talk about you now because you guys definitely off to a strong start.
No, I appreciate it, Dave. I mean, I thank you for having us on, and thank you for highlighting Hampden-Sydney. We think, got a lot of good schools in the ODAC, and we want them to be highlighted as much as possible. And thank you to you, man. I mean, we love what you do for the sport, for Division III in general, and it's just great to get on here with you.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. We're doing a hybrid here, like old school where it was only a radio show once, and new school where we got the video of you on. It's great to see a great backdrop, by the way. Hey, listen, Caleb, you came in a few years ago, and I'm going to say something a little tongue-in-cheek. You were the hot pick, as it were, because, you know, you were having so much success, interesting enough, down in the USA South, who you ODAC play. And listen, things were going well, and you got a tough job because you struggled a little bit under the previous regime, and you came in, and what was the trick that has allowed you to have such an immediate impact on the program and suddenly already bring Hamden-Sydney back to its glory days, at least on the short run?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think it's the school. I mean, I know people were like, "Oh, coach, you came in here and did all this," but really, Hamden-Sydney is a place that's built for success. I mean, the support here is unbelievable. Just the college in general, it's been around forever. People know about it. So you have a wide reach and, you know, how you can recruit. And it's a place when you get someone to visit here, it's a unique place. We're an all male school, you know, so obviously it's, you know, it has its challenges there, but we really view that as a perk for so many reasons. And when people come visit, they see that, you know, and so I think what I did is I came in with a different perspective. You know, I came in with the perspective of, yeah, you know, we hadn't done well, but I knew the league and I respected the league. And I think, and honestly, put coaching staffs together that were top notch. I mean, I have Bryson Gibson that's been with me for the whole time we've been here. And that guy he's had guys trying to steal him every year. Now I got Carson Long with me. Same thing's happening to him. So I, you know, really surrounded myself with guys that are workers, guys that get it, pound the pavement, go recruit top notch people and top notch players. And I think, you know, just working on our culture in the midst of all that has been what's helped us get it going.
I don't know if I've ever asked this of you, but obviously those of us who've been around Division III for a little bit got to know you pretty well at Guilford, and the amazing teams that Guilford had while you were there, and Jordan Snipes and the rest, like Ben Strong. So you obviously knew the ODAC. This was nothing new to you, and you knew the Hamden-Sydney history, and you knew the program certainly well. But did it feel at any point that this was going to be a daunting affair? And honestly, are you where you thought you were going to be, or are you even surprised at how quickly things have turned around?
So yeah, actually, my first coaching job was Washington and Lee, which is kind of crazy. So I went to Guilford. I coached at WNL and then coached back at Guilford under, you know, with Tom Palumbo, who's a, you know, legend in the game. But yeah, I don't think I think coming to Hampden-Sydney, there's a high expectation. I mean, they provide resources for you to compete at a very high level, and I think there's an expectation there to do it. And I think, you know, me and the rest of the staff, we just really love that challenge. So I think we just kind of rolled our sleeves up and got to work, and we knew it could be done. I don't know how quickly we thought it could be done, but I think the guys that we inherited were unbelievable and really, you know, committed to what we were talking about and really bought into the culture that we were preaching and developed together. And then early on, we recruited a class of guys that now we have 3 fifth-years in Miles Harris, Chase Turner, and Ryan Clements. And then you have, I think it's 5 other seniors, you know, that are all together right now and have stayed together that whole time and got to play early on. And I don't think it always works out that those classes that you hope to be the foundation all play or all commit to certain roles. But it just happened to be here that we do, like I said before. I mean, I think the Bryson Gibson kind of leading the charge in recruiting and us identifying the type of character young men that played for programs that had been successful. It translated when they got here. You know, they knew how to play a role. I thought the crazy part was that, you know, it's difficult to recruit when you're the last place team in the league. And we had some guys that really believed, and I think that's a testament to the school. You know, you get people here and they see the value of Hampden-Sydney. You know, it's a place that really is committed to athletic success, but it's also a place that sets you up for life, you know, academically. So I think having those guys see that and commit to that and then really develop in the time that they're here has been pretty amazing.
Yeah, we went from a program that was 1 in 15, yes, in conference play and 4-19 overall to 8-8 in conference play, 14-13 in your first campaign. 22-7 last season. 14-2 in conference play. You guys were right there stride for stride with, the beast that was Randolph-Macon. In fact, if anyone wants to go back and look, you did pretty well against Randolph-Macon. Gave them a heck of a tournament. You lost to Guilford in the conference tournament, got into the NCAA tournament, beat a really good Emory squad before Christopher Newport knocked you guys off. How much was that game, and the fact that you knew you were going to play them in the first game, striving and pushing and doing whatever it is that needs to be done in the offseason?
You talking about knowing that we were going to play Christopher Newport?
Yeah, that you're playing the captains.
Yeah, we don't shy away from the competition. Krikorian at CNU has been killing it for years now. He's put together run after run and big winning seasons, it seems like, every year. And I think for us, we knew we had a senior class and a group that had been together a while. But I think if you see every year, we're not afraid to go play people, whether it be at their place or our place, because the ODAC is so difficult. For us, it's about trying to win the league, and you got to prepare yourself for that. So, it might sound a little crazy. We're not just trying to go out there and win 20 games. We're trying to win the ODAC. And you got to go play some people. You got to be challenged. And, we've taken our lumps in previous years, and I think and learned. You said, Macon. Merkel's, he's dominated the league over the past several years. And, he's a guy that has beat up on all of us. So, you learn from that, and you got to go play tough competition and disciplined teams that play defense. And we tried to do that. So I think scheduling that game was not so much, let's get a rematch right away, even though it kind of turned into that. But and our guys were obviously hungry to see those guys again, having been knocked out by them. But I think it was more so, hey, we need to challenge ourselves. Let's go, let's play some good competition so we can win the league.
Talk to me about the game. Talk to me about this start of the season. 4 games in, you got a 74-53 win over CNU. You've got a 74-48 win over Widener, over Greensboro, 72-63 over Widener, 80-66 over Rose-Hulman. You're outscoring your opponents by nearly 20 a game, including some really good competition. What's this start been like? Is this what you guys wanted to accomplish?
Well, yeah, we want to win every game. We kind of break our season up into phases. The first phase of the season is really us trying to figure out who we are, identify, understand what our roles are in the team, so on and so forth. We want to win during that time as well. I think the Christopher Newport game, it was, as you can imagine, the crowd here at Hamden-Sydney is unbelievable. Our fans, our students are the best around. I haven't seen everybody, but it's unreal. NCAA tournament was electric, and that first game, it was a whiteout, and we clearly helped us. We came out, we already had the edge of just having been beat, and those guys had that place rocking, and it was a lot of fun. I thought we just came out with a different sort of energy, and we just were able to sustain that over the course of 40 minutes. I didn't think it was anything crazy special. When you're going against good teams as well, I do think they had won the last game. We kind of were able to make any adjustment we wanted to make. I thought they made a good adjustment. Their big guy played when we played him in the NCAA tournament. He did not play when we played him at their place. That's something that we had to adjust to. So I think a little bit of a chess match there. But overall, I just thought, it's the first game of the year. People were trying to figure out who they are, and we just kind of had the energy and that home court advantage.
Well, tell me, obviously the home court is a huge deal, and we know it's been a special place, and you've gotten that magic back, which is certainly driving that. But tell me a little bit about the team that's helped drive this boat a little bit. Give us a sense of who's back, who are you guys missing, who's adjusting, what's the dynamics with this squad?
We lost a very key. We graduated one guy last year, Harrison Taylor, and although he didn't play minutes, he was a very valuable member to us. He's a guy that brought energy, was kind of led the scout team, big time leader for us. But we brought everybody else back. We lost 2 guys to transfer, but all 5 starters came back, and the majority of our bench minutes came back. And so you have a guy in Adam Brazel who's a point guard who's led the charge for his whole career up to this point, and going into his senior year this year. And he's just really developed and I mean, he's a guy that just loves the game and is constantly trying to grow. And he's pushing himself into a role where I think, he runs the show for us. I mean, he's a guy that our players look to get us into things, and he can score it if you need him to score it. He can play make if you need him to play make, and he's a captain for us. So I think you got AB. Ryan Clements is a fifth year. He's very dynamic. We threw him into the fire his freshman year to work through mistakes, and he's matured into an all-league player and is unreal, 1,000-point scorer. And then you got like Davidson Hubbard. I mean, you got Alex Elliott. You got Josiah Hardy. These guys have started. DJ Wright started for us at the majority of games last year. He's been coming off the bench for us this year. Talking about a guy that can go fill it up. He's a perfect example of a guy that could probably score 20 points at maybe some other places. And for us, he's willing to play a role. That's what we need him to do. And he comes in and he picks and chooses his moments. But he's a spark for us off the bench. But you go down the line. I mean, Sean Hodge. I mean, we got tons of guys that have been here. There's 8 guys that have been here for some 5 years. And then now you're starting to sprinkle in, some of this junior class. We had 2 guys, and Eamon McGowan and, Nick Shryock. And then you got our sophomore class that's now starting to play a little bit. And then you're bringing in this freshman class that's really competing. I mean, those guys are like, man, in the recruiting process, we said, hey, we got some returning guys. It's not going to be easy, to find minutes. And I give these guys a lot of credit. They're coming in here and they're competing with all they got. And we got some guys that are going to keep this thing going for years to come.
Got 9 guys who are seniors or fifth years. So there feels like a little bit of got to take advantage of this while you've got it. This is the year you've built to this point. I'm not sure, probably won't find out what the exact goals are necessarily that you all have this season, but is there that urgency in the locker room that everyone understands? Listen, there's going to be good teams after this, but we've got a chance to make it happen now. We've got to do it now.
Yeah, we try not to get anxious about it. Like, we're all about control the controllables, but we think we have a good team, so I think what we try to do is keep a sense of urgency to continue to develop, really. Be present, enjoy this process together, not try to just get, we lost a very tough one to Guilford. We were up big in that game in the semifinals, and they came all the way back and hit a half-court shot to win the game. And, that stung. But I really think those experiences, that's what makes you, and you get there again. So I think we have a group. We're lucky to have a group that was able to have those experiences and then come back. Not all the time you have that. So I do think our team has a sense of urgency and a desire to take another step. We get to the ODAC championship, win the regular season, go into the NCAA tournament and go past the second round. But we don't focus on those things. We really, those are goals of ours, and we've talked about them early in the year, and then we don't talk about it anymore. I mean, and we move forward with the work and we try to enjoy it.
Looking ahead, you start conference play next. You've got Averett, who we mentioned, former USA South colleague of yours. I think you might know a little bit too through a little bit about Averett. I don't know, just a gut feeling. But you got them at home coming up on Wednesday. But then you're on the road at Guilford and at Randolph-Macon to play the next 2 of these 3. Randolph-Macon may have come back a little bit to earth, but they're still a darn tough team. Guilford, as you know, playing pretty well at this point. And as you mentioned, it's a rematch of that game last year, which was insane to watch. This is an important opening stretch to this conference slate for you all.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. It's funny when people say like Randolph-Macon's coming back down to earth. They lose like one game or something like that, and people are like,
totally tongue in cheek, totally
not used to these guys losing one game,
right?
So credit to Merkel there, but nobody's overlooking those guys or Guilford or Averett. The ODAC is a beast, and you really got to come to play every night. Right now we're focused on Averett. They're a team that's got some different players in there. It looks like they haven't had the success they wanted to this point, but they've played us tough every time we've played them. I mean, they're going to be really physical. Coach Duino does a great job. Those guys used to win the USA South. I mean, he's going to have those guys ready to play. We're coming off break. I mean, we're going to need to be sharp, and we're going to need to bring our A game. And then after that game, we're really locked into that, and then we'll kind of move forward. I know the Guilford and Macon games will both be big games as well, and when we get to that point, we'll figure out a way to get it done against those guys too.
Yeah, but talk to me about this conference. I mean, it's always been a tough conference, but you've got Guilford and Macon yourself. Virginia Wesleyan, Dave Macedo's got his squad out to a hot start. You've got, of course, Clay Nunley down at Roanoke is going to, while they lost some players from last year, they're going to have a tough team. You know that every time you got to play them. And there's going to be the unknowns. What's Lynchburg going to be like this season? Eastern Mennonite could be an interesting squad this year. W&L is always going to be a tough team. The ODAC feels like it's getting deeper and tougher every year. And while, yes, Randolph-Macon tongue-in-cheek has come back a step, the middle and the bottom have gone up 5 or 6.
Yeah, I think this 5th year, the grad transfer, you see teams have the ability to, not have to develop a high school player for several years. Instead, you may be able to plug a Division II guy in here, or maybe even a Division I guy that can help you win some games right away. The coaching in the ODAC is ridiculous. I mean, Palumbo's won an insane amount of games. Merkel national champion, Palumbo multiple Final Fours. Macedo national champion. Been back to the game. That was when I was playing.
Yes.
Nunley's been knocking on the door. I mean, he's right there. You got Hillary Scott won a title. Not even talking about like the Ferrum Panthers, right? Pat Corrigan, who's a Hampden-Sydney. I mean, they're undefeated right now.
Yeah, they're off to an interesting start.
Just had a big league win, and they'll have a big contest, I think, against Roanoke in their second conference play. But the league is tough. I mean, the league is tough, and I'm telling you, these coaches, they know how to recruit. You're getting guys in here with energy, and then you got the guys that have been around a while that you know what you're going to get. But it is, I mean, you're talking about going to Guilford and trying to play the pack line, Palumbo. I mean, he's going to make you grind it out one way or the other. And it's going to be a physical game. He may only play about 5-6 guys, but those guys are going to be ready to go. And, he'll find a way to be in it, in every game he's in. So it's an impressive group. And I don't think these guys, especially the guys that have been around a while, man, I don't think they get enough credit. I think those guys should be highlighted a lot more. I mean, they've done an unbelievable job, not only the ODAC, but when they get to the NCAA tournament, those guys make runs.
Do you have any advantage being a Guilford alum and playing for Tom Palumbo into those games, or is it absolutely no help whatsoever?
We call each other, man. We just give each other the scout. We're like, man, let's just duke it out. Let's just tell each other exactly what we're gonna do.
Oh, your teams must love you.
No, we do talk a lot. We talked today, and he's almost all of what I learned is from him. So I think it's a lot of fun to compete against him, but it's definitely, I think what you're going to get from both sides, right? It's like who's going to, whose guys might make the extra play, or who's going to get the 1-2 extra offensive rebound, whatever the case is. I mean, what you're going to get. I got a lot of love for that guy, but when it's between the lines, man, he's beat up on me more than I beat up on him. Let's just put it that way.
No, I hear you there. Curious, what is the number 2 ranking in this week's poll? And I know what polls mean to a lot of people, and especially coaches. I've heard the coach speak. But for a Hampden-Sydney group, school, whatever, what does the number 2 ranking mean to this program, mean to the school, mean to the department?
It's a big deal. I'm not going to give you any coach talk or whatever it is. I mean, we're very excited about it. I think it's a huge compliment to the commitment of the guys in our program, to commitment of the school, our AD, Chad Isley, his commitment to wanting the basketball program to be successful. I think it's all those things. Now, it has no indication on what we're going to do this year, but
certainly,
it's a big compliment, and we'll address it. I didn't know that until you brought it up, but we'll address it probably in practice tomorrow and be like, hey, good job. You've been recognized by your peers, and that's great. But you know what you got to do to achieve the goals you want to achieve, and it's not getting ranked the first week of the season. It's you give yourself a pat on the back and let's keep it moving.
Yeah, well said. I figured. I appreciate at least that you acknowledge it's a big deal for you guys. There's some who try and avoid that question. Hey, Caleb, really appreciate the time. Congratulations. Great to chat with you as always. I love chatting with you about the program, and great to see the success that you've been able to translate over to Hamden-Sydney. As always, though, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those maybe tuned in?
Yeah, Dave, again, man, I just really want to thank you. You know, our staff over here, we tune in to these shows that you do throughout the year. You know, we're dedicated to Division III basketball. It's our life. So to have another person that gets so fired up about it and it means something to them, we just really appreciate that. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Caleb. Appreciate it. Hey, good luck, not only with the next few games, which will be fun to watch, but for the rest of the season. And I'll know catch up with you guys at a later date. Enjoy it. Have a great holiday season as well. And we'll talk soon.
Sounds good, Dave. Take care, man.
You take care. Caleb Kimbrough joining us on the Hoopsville hotline. Appreciate him taking the time to do that. Again, if you're just tuning in, yes, you can't see my lovely mug. We got a camera that has decided to fail on us. We're going to figure that out. By the way, if you're also tuning in, Facebook, for some reason, stopped our live stream. I have no idea why, but we've fired that up. So that is running for you if you need it. So tune in. And we're also on YouTube on our live stream and, of course, on our Team One Sports stream as well. When we come back, we will pivot and we will talk. We'll talk to the other team that we wanted to get on the show in the opening of the season, the Rhode Island College anchor women. Jenna Cosgrove will join us to talk about her team, their start to the season, which included also a pretty big win, and what she sees for not only nearly getting to the national championship last year, but what that means for this year and how she sees the Little East shaping up as well. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. Back with more after this.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
Responsibility is being accountable for your words and actions, first and foremost. It also is an obligation to be a positive influence in the communities around you. Being in a D3 program, you're going to have lots of different opportunities. You're not just an athlete, you're also involved in student life. Your academics are extremely important. We give a lot of our student athletes responsibilities right from the start by giving them leadership opportunities, by having them engage in the community, be a positive influence. That's being a responsible person.
There are over 480,000 college athletes. Only 2% would go pro. That means over 470,000 will not get a shoe contract. No autographs. No private jets. No fan clubs. No Hall of Fame inductions. Instead, they will walk away with something much more valuable.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit nabc.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC1927. That's nabc.com or NABC1927 on social media. Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Still don't have a camera on us right now. For whatever reason, our main camera decided to give up the ghost or something. Really not sure. It's very strange. It's registered as being there, but it's not working. So we'll figure it out. We'll get another camera up and running here in a bit. We do have a couple tape segments, so that'll give us some time to work on things. I'm your host, Dave McHugh, coming to you from the Hoopsville studios. If you got questions for us, you can always email us, hoopsville@d3sports.com. You can join us on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Just look for @D3Hoopsville or use the hashtag Hoopsville. You can also find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville, where we restarted our simulcast there, and on YouTube, where we're live simulcasting as well, youtube.com/D3Hoopsville. You can also find us on the Team One Sports app, Android TV, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and Roku. Go to the Team One Sports app and then look up Hoopsville from there. Our new women's top 25 got out in the last 30 minutes. NYU remains moves up to number 1. Transylvania actually falls from 1 to 2, if you can believe it. Swapping places, NYU now with 14 first place votes. Transylvania with 10. Christopher Newport picks up the lone other vote. They are in third and stay in third. Rhode Island College, who we'll be talking to momentarily here with Jenna Cosgrove, moved from 5th to 4th. Scranton from 6th to 5th. Whitewater from 9th to 6th. Wartburg from 8th to 7th. Tough Falls from 4th to 8th on the heels of that loss to Rhode Island College. Hardin-Simmons jumps from 16 to 9. The win over Trinity, Texas, probably playing a huge role in that decision. Gustavus Adolphus rounds out the top 10, jumping in from 15th. Trinity, Connecticut falls out of the top 10 down to 7th. There are just 3 new teams in the women's top 25. Emory at 19, Amherst at 23, and Mass Dartmouth at 24. Those falling out. Ohio Northern, who was 10th, Babson, who was 13th, and Messiah, who was 25th. We'll talk more about that in the men's poll a little later in the program. Speaking of the top 25, we talked to Rhode Island College's Jenna Cosgrove, who was destined to be on our opening show of the season, but could not join us due to our technical difficulties. But she was able to join us today, earlier, to talk about how she saw things playing out, not only last year, as they nearly got to the national championship, but how they've started this year as well. Now joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline, it's the head coach of the Rhode Island College women's basketball program, and it is Jenna Cosgrove. And first and foremost, Coach, thanks for bearing with us and waiting a few weeks to join us on the show, and also happy Thanksgiving. I hope you're well.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks so much for having me.
Listen, I gets to a point where I'm kind of expecting you all to have a good season. Maybe that's a little bit naive on my part, or a little bit assumption on my part, but I expected you guys to have a good season, but you started with a bang this year. Before we get into the details of the win over Tufts and the other ways that you have gone so far, give me a sense from your perspective how you had for expectations going in and how the first few weeks have gone from your view.
Yeah, Dave, this is definitely the most experienced group that I've had, and an experience that you can't teach. I mean, where they got that experience in the Final Four, making that run last year, there's a confidence that's instilled in these returners that, they hate to lose. And So where we may have not started this hot in the past, they've come with a different sense of resilience and confidence in playing. We have 5 fifth-year players. This is my first time hitting that curve with the fifth-year kids. You can't teach experience. That's one thing for sure. And our depth is stronger than ever. Bringing in a couple new players and just expanding. So I'm really proud of how we started. And I think that's a credit to our upperclassmen and our leaders and that experience, but it's a credit to what they did last year and just trying to pick up where they left off.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to talk about last year in a bit, but it's probably better to start there now. I mean, again, getting to a Final Four. And listen, 5 points away from Christopher Newport, which was a behemoth last year. Granted, with some injuries, they were still a scary team. It wasn't like you got to the semifinals and thanked everybody for getting a parting gift and exited. You gave that one a fight. It really showed you all were not only a program that had been rising for a while, but a program that deserved to be in that conversation in the upper tier.
Yeah, what's great about that is, like you said, it was close. It came down to the wire, and the kids weren't satisfied, although they were so proud of what we accomplished and did, and first time in program history. But they knew that we could win that game, and they knew that we had the ability and we deserved to be there. And so I think carrying that into this year is where we set the tone right from the beginning. We really didn't lose much at all. If anything, we've gained additions that make our team even stronger. So I think that's, we were right there. And I think when you get a taste of that success, they want more of it.
I can totally understand that. Obviously, that drives you into the offseason, gets you into this year. First game, though, is Tufts, and no pun intended, they're tough. They've always been tough. They're one of those teams that when you don't talk about Amherst, you're talking about in the NESCAC. They're the team that we're kind of synonymous with penciling in maybe to a Final Four, or at least penciling into the conversation of being up for the national championship. And you guys opened up with them, and everybody has rough games to start the season. Don't think you all got the memo. 71-53 absolutely handled that game, granted at home. How important was it not only to play Tufts to start the season, but to get that kind of win early in the year?
It was really important for our program, I think, especially for those returners and upperclassmen. We have played some powerhouses now the last 2 years and really upped our schedule, but have really been defeated and not only not played our best, but really got kind of smacked. Where this year they knew what was at stake. Tufts is an incredible team, returning just as much experience. So they were ready. I think, again, they put more work in this summer and this off season than they ever have, knowing what they never really looked beyond, the Little East Conference too much, besides that first round game. And there was so much more in their foreseeable, in the future now than we didn't look too much ahead. And we're not doing that, but I think playing Tufts, they knew that was a statement game, and that was something we had to try and really get under our belt right away.
Another thing that jumped out at me was the show kind of where this program has gone, comparing the start of last season through the finish to the start of this season. Last year, you beat TCNJ to start the year by 10. You then lost to Smith, unfortunately, in a not very close game, and then lost to Babson in a not very close game. What I find interesting is you made up against that Babson's game almost immediately. At the end of the season in the quarterfinals, you beat them, literally flipping the script 60-47. You then turn around and look at this year. You've already played Babson. That's the last game you guys played back on the, this past weekend. And you beat them, granted in a close one, 53-48. That's not too much of a surprise. But it shows kind of the momentum of the program. Tough start last year, going 1-2 with 2 losses to Smith and Babson, who've been synonymous in New England. By the end of last season, you turn it around, and now you're getting wins over Babson. Is that kind of the nutshell of the program?
Yeah, it's our standard now is just to go in and I don't think there's a different perspective on where the program is right now. I think in the last couple of years, but especially thinking about last year, these were games we were saying, okay, we're the underdog. We're going to go in and we're going to try and upset and knock them off. Now I do sense there's a little bit more pressure and a little bit more of an expectation, but they have a different take on going into that game. Like, hey, we can do this. We're not the underdog. And they hold themselves to a really high standard.
again, interestingly enough, Smith was sitting on the other side of that Final Four. If things had worked out, maybe another rematch, but it both would have been in the title game in Dallas. It didn't work out. Again, the confidence building. Tell me a little bit about this team. You talk about the fifth years. You talk about players who returned. There are also players who didn't return. You're still kind of getting used to things a little bit, but give us a sense of where the leadership is and when we're watching on offense, what we should be keying on, et cetera.
Yeah, one thing that's really special about this group, and it's kind of been a continuous thing with our program, is we really don't have one superstar. We have a lot of great, a lot of different threats, a lot of different weapons on both the offensive and defensive end. I think that makes us really tough to defend. But starting with our fifth years, we returned Izzy Booth, who was our leading scorer last year. And there really hasn't been many kids that I've coached, if any at all, that have really put the work in that she has, in the off season. And it's every day. So she's really, and I think she's just getting her stride, this year. She's got high expectations for herself as well. But we return her. We return Janiah Jones, a defensive catalyst for us. She does all the little things. She's been a 3-year starter. So there's 2 starters. We returned Alicia Munier, who we didn't think would come back. She started against Babson. She's our 6th man off the bench. She was huge for us in the tournament, and again, provides depth for us at that post spot. And then we have our 2 captains who have provided great leadership. Our junior, Madison Medbury, is our point guard. She, in my opinion, was playing as one of the best point guards in the country in the tournament. Big reason for our success in the NCAA tournament. She's she's a senior on the court. She's a junior on the court, senior in the classroom. So we'll see if she comes back. But she's our leader at the point spot. And then we have Angelina Nardolillo, our junior returner, another starter for us as our center. She didn't play versus Babson, actually. So, but again, we've got depth that has been able, we saw that with adversity already this past weekend, having a starter out, and she's our leading scorer right now, having to have people step up. But there are 2 kids. We return, and 2 other keys off the bench. Jada Bing was huge for us in the tournament, and Claire Green. And we bring in 2 kids that are new to our program that I think provide us more depth than we've had in the past. And one is Olivia Middleton. She's a guard, transfer from St. Lawrence University, leading scorer. She's from Rhode Island, so coming back home for her 5th year. And then grad student Sophia Guerrier. She's a really interesting thing. She was a player of the year during our 11-0 COVID season. So she was done. Smart kid. She's deferring law school right now to come back and try and be a part of this. So we got a lot of, those are 2 kids, that are 2 great guards that, really help us in our depth. And we have a really special group. I don't think they're still trying to gel and mesh together, but I think the best is yet to come.
Interesting, deferring law school, but on top of that, the body at some point just can't do it anymore. So you're trying to live it out. I get it, but wow, good for her.
She had a break on her knees. She's feeling better.
There, awesome. One interesting dynamic, though, is you only got 5 players who are freshmen and or sophomore, at least labeled as such on the roster. Obviously, that's more about eligibility than anything. So in some ways, and I'm not trying to look too far ahead, but in some ways, you kind of got to ride this wave. That next group, as it were, isn't there necessarily to pick up the reins when this group is ready to step aside. And maybe they show up next year, certainly. We don't know what that future is yet, but you kind of got an interesting moment here where the message is it's now or never, isn't it?
Yeah, this is a group that, you don't get often in coaching or in a program. You just don't. It's kind of a blessing of, COVID has done some terrible things, and, then all of a sudden you're blessed with some of these things that come your way, but, and they don't make sense in some way, but at the same time, you're right. I mean, this is a group that is put together that is very unique for this year.
Tell me a little bit about the schedule moving forward, because you got Trinity, Connecticut coming up. Obviously, another team that can be in the conversation, as it were, hosted the championship, the semifinals last year after many thought they might be in those games. a tough squad that played Smith to a 3-point loss just recently. And then you'll pivot into conference play. I know you're not looking at the conference. We'll talk about that in a minute. But how important is still the game against Trinity and the non-conference game you'll have against Gustavus and Baldwin Wallace, et cetera?
Yeah, Trinity we're really looking forward to. I was hoping to get them on the schedule last year and we couldn't fit it in, but they're a great program. They're well coached, they're experienced. So it's another huge kind of target we have on our schedule that we're going on the road. It's in a couple days. So really trying to get my group ready for that. That will be a really tough challenge.
And what do you expect from this conference this year? I mean, it feels weird. I've been around Division III way too long. Every time I look at the Little East, my first thought is, all right, how's Southern Maine going to do this year? And it's not that era anymore. It's very different in the Little East. You just have to go back to last season to see how big a difference that was. You guys leading the way, Eastern Connecticut, Mass, Dartmouth, Castleton, teams that we certainly have talked to. Southern Maine's in the middle of the pack with a below 500 record. This is a very different Little East. What are you expecting this season?
Yeah, it's always competitive, but it's definitely changed. I know we've added 3 new coaches to the conference. So, I expect really good things from those programs and just a difference, can't expect to be the same type of teams doing the same things. But, EastCon was kind of where we were this year with a powerhouse, veteran squad. And so it's fluctuated. I know Mass Dartmouth has a bunch of transfers that they've picked up, some higher level transfers and have done really well, and they knocked off Smith. So just trying to stay focused on Trinity, and then we'll dive into that conference. But, we are really looking forward to that Florida tournament too, to face 2 really good non-conference opponents outside of our region. I think playing Trinity and going to play those 2 are, and even Springfield are going to be really good tests outside of conference.
Yeah, I should have mentioned Springfield will be your last game before that tournament. All those games taking place before Christmas. Quickly about the LEC, and I mean this in a general sense, is it ever a good thing to try and have a goal of going through conference play undefeated, or is it more about trying to get through conference play in the right position to prepare yourself for further play?
Well, I can tell you that last year, when we dropped that 1 game to EastCon, if we ended up losing in a coin flip. So I would have to tell you that we'd go for undefeated, but I think we changed the coin flip rules, so it doesn't have to come down to that.
Fair.
So, we learn from every loss you take something from. Sometimes you go undefeated and then that doesn't always help. I think sometimes, you need that loss to bounce back. However, we're just focused on playing our best every game.
Certainly makes sense. I would ask what's up on the bulletin board. What are the team goals? I know I'm not going to get that kind of stuff, but realistically, is coming off of a national semifinal appearance, is the goal to make it back to that position in a national championship? I assume that's the easy one. Or are there smaller goals along the way that are more important to help you get down the path?
Yeah, we have big goals and we have goals for along the way for sure. I've asked them this recently, and I know Izzy Booth, our senior, right away just went to what's been our goal every year, and that's to win the Little East, and that would be her 4th and our fourth in a row, and that's goal number 1. We accomplish this first steps and then move forward. But I would be lying if I said that we didn't, that the larger goal isn't to get back to where we were, but one step further, which is that national championship game. And that's been our goal every year I've been here in this program. I've been super lucky to have that kind of motivation. Every single year we've gone one step further. Last year, the goal was just to get past Rowan, and by far did we exceed that, but
yes.
So these kids they've got big goals in mind.
Quickly about you, of course, Endicott grad, had let's say a foot in the water, maybe all the way up to your knees in Division I, and had that experience, came back to Division III. And I'm not asking you to give us your entire career plans, but is this home? Is Division III home, or is the experience you got in Division I still something that is of interest?
I love where I'm at. having a baby in March, so I'm hoping that's I hope
Congrats.
that's April, Dave. So my family's close by, so I just I'm loving where I am. I love the kids I'm around, the coaches, and I played D3. I'm a D3 type of kid, so I see a lot of balance in that. So I like it I'm good where I'm at right now.
I can totally understand that. Congrats on the baby. By the way, I know you can't totally plan these things. My son came 3 weeks early. I get that it's not, written in
Don't
stone.
hear that.
But have you had a conversation with the unborn yet about not arriving when it's going to be inconvenient for a national title game? I'm just curious.
We speak daily about that.
Yes. Okay.
Speak daily about that. Yes, we are pushing for a late arrival.
Very, very good. Yeah, I mean, it'd be about the one time you wish the kid would not be born when you really want the kid to be born. I get that.
Yep.
Hey, Coach, congratulations again on a tremendous start. And really great finish to the season, too. We didn't get a chance to talk about that last year, but you guys certainly turned some heads, and it's great to see that the program is where it is. It's fun to have another team to talk about in New England as well. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuned in?
Just come out and catch us play. Hope if it's in Rhode Island or on the road, this is a very, very special, fun group to watch.
I would agree. I'm looking forward to watching, maybe from away, but I'm looking forward to catching a few more games on the way. Take care of yourself. Good luck the rest of the season. We'll look forward to catching up with you down the road.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you. Jenna Cosgrove joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. Thanks, Coach, for joining us. And we got our camera back. We played around with it during the segment that we had pre-taped with Jenna Cosgrove, and it's working. And crazy enough is it's also the other camera's now working on another computer. Go figure. Technology, it's grand, isn't it? Anyway, thanks for joining us, folks. We're back live now. Coming up, we'll be talking to another women's coach in the now updated top 25. By the way, the first week or in-season poll is out for both the men's and women's side. And as we mentioned, Rhode Island College is up to 4 now. They were 5th. They are having a bang-up season. Big games against Trinity, Connecticut coming up. Then they get a conference play against Castleton, Southern Maine, and Mass Boston before a big game against Springfield on the 11th of December. And then they go down to play Gustavus Adolphus and Baldwin Wallace down in Fort Lauderdale. And then it's conference the rest of the way. But Jenna Cosgrove and her team, worth watching for sure. Speaking of teams worth watching for sure, our next guest is one of those teams. When I talk to coaches, they talk about this program. We've had them on before, but never with the whole season ahead of us as a perspective. That's what I wanted to get from Olivier Lett and those at Millikin. We'll take a break. When we come back, we will talk to her about that and plenty more. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3 Hoops. Back with more after this.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Coach of the Year, Administrator of the Year, All-America Team, Wade Trophy. The WBCA doesn't just honor coaches, but players, administrators, and much more. The WBCA strives to honor those who have contributed to the advancement of women's basketball. Celebrate the present, honor the past, look to the future.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was scared and shy. It was hard to look at people's faces. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. I made friends and won lots of gold medals. But I learned more than just playing golf. Special Olympics helped me to find my voice. and now everyone else is speechless.
Division III allows you to give yourself to other things.
Having that free time allows me to pursue the things that I want to pursue.
Division III athletics affords students the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport.
It allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
We are calling you, all of you. We are calling all Division III schools to join our cause.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division III. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
I learned a lot of valuable lessons playing college football. I never thought about the health benefits of exercise until I actually started to talk to coaches in college. It's not only just for performance, it's for life. My coaches instilled the importance of well-being, not only building up strength, mental health, getting enough sleep, eating properly is all what it is to be healthy. I decided that I want to go into personal trainer and share my knowledge that I obtained in college about physical and mental well-being.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. As we continue to roll along, cameras are finally working, so you get to see this ugly mug, and the voice is still holding out, thanks to cough drops and lovely drinks and all that jazz. If you got questions for us, the information's at the bottom of the screen, but if you're not able to see the screen, you can always email us, hoopsville@d3sports.com. Speaking of which, nope, no emails available. You know, join us on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Just look for us at D3Hoopsville on those 3 social media accounts. You can use the hashtag Hoopsville where it's appropriate. We do not check Instagram in show, just warning you now, and Threads, we're trying to get used to that. We're on Facebook where we're live simulcasting the show. Last I checked, still live simulcasting? We are still live simulcasting at facebook.com/Hoopsville. Of course, we're live simulcasting on YouTube at youtube.com/D3Hoopsville, and then broadcasting in general on Team One Sports app, Android TV, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and Roku is where you can tune in. New Women's Top 25 is out, as we mentioned. Millikin is up to 16th. Granted, they're a little higher in another poll of our favorites, but they're 16th in our poll, and that's built on a good, strong start to the season. Once again, a easy win over Beloit. Fontbonne was a 15-point win. Otterbein was a 23-point win. DePauw is the one that jumps off the table. On the 18th at DePauw of November, they won 86-53. Remember, that's a Transylvania, or a DePauw squad that Transylvania beat at a bit of a closer margin. They also went over Wisconsin Platteville by 5 and Illinois College handily by 32. When you talk about programs out there that a number of people are both in awe of and maybe in some fear of, it's this Millikin Big Blue squad and Olivia Lett and what they're doing. We normally talk to her in January or February after the season's been rolling along. I want to hear from her early in the season with so much ahead of us. So joining us on the Hoopsville hotline, it is the aforementioned Olivia Lett, head coach of Millikin. Coach, first and foremost, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well.
Your 6th season, though, as you throw the caveat out there, one of them was a COVID year. I get that, but you're taking advantage of that COVID year as we speak, too, as are many coaches. Did you expect, I asked this of Caleb Kimbrough, too, did you expect to have the success you're having at a program that, listen, 21 seasons happened back in the mid-aughts, but since then, 14 wins or maybe 16 wins was considered a big deal. Did you expect to have the success you're having now in back-to-back 23, 24 win seasons?
I don't know if you can ever expect that much success that quickly. We knew that we were getting the right kids in the program, kids that fit the style that we play and the type of person that's very successful at Millikin. It's a blue collar school, and we go after blue collar kids. And we were able to get players like Bailey Kaufman and Elise Knudsen in our first 2 recruiting classes. That's going to change things real quickly. 2 of the most loyal kids that you can find that have just accelerated our growth. I can't say enough about our senior class from last year and just what they did for us as well. Graduated with over a 3.9 cumulative GPA over 4 years, and took our team from winning 8 games to playing in the Sweet 16 in an NCAA tournament. That helps your success quite a bit when you get people like that around you.
Yeah, that does yeoman's work, to say the least. It certainly helps solidify what you're trying to build as a program. This has always been an interesting conference, too. So it wasn't like you're walking into a conference where if you get a little bit of momentum, you can turn the program around and be competing. You're going up against, your alma mater for starters in Illinois Wesleyan, but a Carthage squad that over the years has been pretty good, and some others. This isn't some slouch. You had some heavy lifting. Was there any bit that you had to change on campus first and get people to buy in on what you wanted to do? Or was that there? It was just a matter of tapping into it.
That first year, Yanni Sadler was huge for us. She averaged, I think, 20 points. Was a unanimous first-team all-conference kid on a team that only won 8 games. That's hard to do. And she really kind of started to change that culture in terms of being in the gym. Her, Aubrey Magro, and then Aubrey Staten decided to come in right before my first season as well. And so those 3 really led the charge, even though we didn't necessarily see the wins that year. And then Bailey's commitment was huge in terms of that class. That kind of allowed a few of the rest of them to fall into place. She watched the fight and the heart that everybody played with, and I think that really got her to believe in what we could do, even though we weren't doing it yet. She wanted to be part of that, and that helps just continue to change what that culture is. Now it's something where I walk in the morning and there's already 2 and 3 people in the gym, and that's a really cool thing to be a part of. It's not for everybody, and we talk about how difficult it is and how hard it is, and that you got to have that commitment level. You're not going to have that big school social life. You're going to have something different that is really, really great, but that's not for everybody. And so it's about finding the people that really fit that culture.
It's amazing, too, when someone buys in early, or you get those who are going to buy in, who start laying the groundwork and showing everybody how it's to be done. And then suddenly everybody figures it out, right? That's the light bulb moment.
Oh, absolutely. You can tell the difference between our returners when they're in the gym too, and our freshmen at the very beginning of the year. And then our freshmen quickly pick up on it, but our returners kind of go in the gym and they know what they're doing. They know what their workout should look like. They're doing it with a purpose. And the freshmen are kind of, wide-eyed and figuring it out. By this point in time in the year, most of them know what they're doing when they're going in there even by themselves. So many kids, through high school, I've only been in a gym with a coach. And so they're waiting for somebody to tell them what to do. And so when they start to figure it out themselves and become self-sufficient, it's so helpful for them off the court too. And so you see those wheels start to churn and them start to mature in that way. And that's when they start to be successful on the court too.
Yeah, it helps with academics, and it helps with so many other life parts. By the way, the other thing too, you get to work with them earlier now. You get to take part of your year, if you so choose, and work with them earlier. So that's got to be a big benefit as well.
Yeah, that was totally different this year. This is the biggest changeover that I've had really in my roster in 6 years. We only have 3. We only had at the beginning of the year 3 returning healthy minute getters. And prior to that, I had only really ever lost 1 or 2 at a time. And so it was much different. And so we used all 8 practices before the season started. And I think it was really beneficial just teaching our defense. It's a lot different than what most of them ran in high school or where they were before. And we probably used most of our practices on that end of the basketball, just because that's the way most of them are going to get on the floor. We've got some scoring power in Elise, Bailey, and Sophie. And so their best chance to get on the floor is to be able to play defense and guard.
And the other thing too, great segue. Talk to me about this team, because as you're rising in the polls, and we'll talk about what happened in the last couple of seasons that's built you towards this, but you did have some turnover this year. But in some ways, I talk to coaches and others out there, they don't see it that way. They see you have turnover, but they're not chalking up to, they're going to have a down year. If anything, I think they're more fearful of you.
Yeah, I think we got some transfers in that are helping us right away. Matea Tellis, Emily Brand-Eisen, Anna Blank, Kylie Block have all helped us right out of the gate, helped us fill some of those gaps that, were left by Chelsea McCollum and Miranda, especially on the defensive end. And then Abby Ratch is rebounding. Sarah Ness was huge for us last year. And so those 4 transfers have been big. We've got a freshman that I think is playing well for us right now, and Christina Rice, and they all know where the ball is supposed to go in big moments. They know that Elise and Bailey need the ball in their hands. And a lot of times it's knowing what your role is and going out there and being really effective at your role. Anytime that you bring back a kid for a 5th year, that's not a bad thing. And so, Bailey Kaufman has been robbed a few times due to injury. And so it's nice to see her out there and playing strong and playing confidently.
You obviously know the conference well, and that will be the what's coming ahead. But first, you've got the non-conference slate, and it's interesting. You've got some testers in there, and again, it's that DePaul game that jumped off the page at me. This is a coach who, prior to taking on you by a handful of games, had picked up her 700th victory, a close loss to Transylvania. They get a big win over Calvin. You come into town and hand it to them, and then WashU ends up doing it to them a week later as well. But it's still a tough DePaul squad. How big a game was that for you all to start this season and to gain that momentum and that encouragement and whatever it is heading into now, the meat of December?
Yeah, I truly believe that DePaul is a tournament team. They're big. If it's something that we're not, we're not big. And they are. And so that was a game that worried me. Our defense hadn't really shown what it was yet at that point. And Coach Huffman is a tactician. She's going to give as many schemes at you as possible. And you knew they were going to be prepared. And 2 years ago when we went over there, they gave it to us. And so some of those kids that are out there remember that and remember how physical it was and how much they just diced up our defense, did a lot of things that gave us trouble. And we were kind of at the same point at that during that season. Early in the year, we had played well. I think we might have been undefeated going into the game and just got smacked. And so we were a little bit more prepared for that moment, I would say, this year. You've got more returners. I think our 3 big guns are playing really composed. We turned around and then went to Platteville, and that was our 4th game in 8 days. And it probably doesn't look like it statistically, but those 3 played really, really well. That's a game that we don't win last year. We went down to WashU and lost in overtime, and I wasn't as composed as I needed to be, and I felt much more composed in this game. And I think they looked a lot more composed in this game. Just even one time we messed up a play, and Sophie Darden gave the ball right back to the point guard, was like, no, wait, and ran the set the correct way at that point. And that's something that in the past, I don't know that she's had the composure to do. So it's always cool when you see your seniors play like seniors.
Yeah, that's a huge step, and having the patience to also understand, hey, we got time on the clock. It's okay. We can do this. By the way, if it makes you feel better, yes, you were undefeated. Can tell those transfers and tell those newbies exactly what it was like to be in those shoes and what you need to do to take the next evolutionary step.
Well, I can tell you, NYU and us both lost to the eventual national champs 2 years in a row. And so we've got that under our belt. But I think that there's just a difference, different level of composure. And like I said, that Platteville game really felt like an NCAA tournament game. They played hard. It was physical. They were big. They played with a lot of heart, and it came down to a few possessions at the end. And I thought some of our transfers played really well in that game too, and just really composed. Today in practice, we talked about the fact that, our 3rd group was getting frustrated. And I said, you're playing against a group right now that is top 15, top 20 in the country. And, and they're playing well right now. We started moving the ball a little bit better in practice tonight, and that looked really, really good. And So I think it allows them over the course of time to come up with that composure in practice too. We try to make sure that our practices are harder than any of the games. That's the goal, is put them in those challenging situations where, it's 5-on-7 at times or whatever it needs to be to try to mimic some of those things. And I thought both the DePaul game and the Platteville game, we did a few things that just were way more composed than, especially the Transylvania game. They got to us in that game. That zone is something different, and until you've seen it and experienced it, you don't really understand how different it is.
Yeah, I've heard that from a few people. Just a couple, 2, 3 have mentioned that zone, or Christopher Newport's is one that, and again, hope. But that's the thing, you're taking on some really tough teams, playing pretty well in those games. It's not like you're some team that doesn't belong. You've proven that you guys belong. And I think that's what scares a lot of people about your team and about that program, is not only how quickly you've gotten it to where it is, but that it is solid and it's not going to be some walkover game. You've got a conference ahead of you that's been rather interesting. Carroll finished second. They're in the next couple of games for you. Augustana finished third. Oh, by the way, they're your next game. And Illinois Wesleyan, your alma mater's lurking along with Wheaton, and maybe Carthage gets back into the conversation. What do you need to do to not lose focus of what the season is, but understand that the next couple of games in terms of the tenor of the rest of the season are going to be kind of important?
Yeah, we've kind of tried to chunk it a little bit. Going into these next two, we had talked about just the fact that it was a tough stretch. We played in the conference title last year. So we know that they're going to give us everything that we want. They've got a great shooter in Macy Beinborn, and I think Whitlock is one of the better posts in our league. She's just very, very physical, and they do some things that can give us trouble. Elmhurst has a new coach. They're going to look completely different. That's somewhere where, we got a big win last year, and so it's a scary game because it's coming off of a weekend off, and it's a completely new coach, something that we haven't necessarily prepped for. Historically, we have not played great on the road.
That you've got bigger goals, and I'm assuming conference championship back in the NCAA tournament is part of that. How do you focus on the small while not losing track of the large?
I think that goes back to that experience of I try to be really honest with them about what games mean too. We going into the DePaul game, we talked about wanting to play at home in the NCAA tournament. That's one of our goals. We have played fairly well at home, and we love playing in front of our crowd. We love how many kids we got in the stands, and getting that chance to be a role model for little girls that are in the stands. And so that's something for them that really resonates. And we know what it's going to take to do that. We knew that probably losing at WashU in overtime might have cost us that opportunity last year. And so it put more weight on each individual game as opposed to getting too big. But, when you've got the Wheatons, the Carrolls, the Illinois Wesleyans lurking around the corner, it's easy to slip up and not be prepared. We haven't played well at North Central. They almost got us last year up there. We were down 18 at one point in time. And so every night in the CCIW is a grind. Especially if you've got that target on your back, and I think there's going to be a few different teams with targets on their back this year based on how everybody's playing in the non-conference right now.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. It's looking like it could be a fascinating conference. It's been up and down. There's some years we expect it to be, banger, awesome, and it ends up not being, or we don't really expect much out of it and it turns into a barn burner or whatever. It's been a bit of an up and down conference. You've been in it for a long time. Is it better now because of the diversity a little bit, that it's not always the same suspects, as it were? Or did you enjoy it more when you were playing, when you all were numero uno and everybody else could just sit and wait?
I think you always enjoy being at the top, but I think there's a lot more parity now. Wheaton is, I think, very tough right now. And I think a lot of it is because of just the experience you see amongst all of the teams. I think everybody is pretty senior heavy right now. Annie Tate is back for Wheaton, and they've got a couple other kids that are playing really well for them. Wesleyan's got Lauren Huber that's playing great. They've got a transfer that's playing really well for them right now too. Carroll's got Olivia Rangel, who's an all-region, all-American style player. And so everybody has an upperclassman that is really leading the charge. And, I already mentioned Macy at Augie. And so that's different than what it's been for the last 2 or 3 years. The last 2 or 3 years, everybody's been fairly young, I would say. And so when you see that development, you're going to see more wins in the non-conference and then hopefully more competition in terms of the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, fair point. Your former coach must have been so thrilled that not only did you take over the program at Millikin, but you got good and have dethroned your alma mater. That's got to be a fun little back and forth between the two of you.
We try to treat that like any other game, and I think that's something that is never easy to do, right? It's been battles every time that we have played them. And I think that's one of the ways that you create a rivalry again, right? You've got to win the game occasionally. And I don't know that it was a rivalry there for a little stretch. Now we've won a few games, and now it's getting back to that point. But I think it's good for our conference in general that we are just battling more. And we're winning some of those non-conference games. They got a big win this weekend. Now I can't remember who they beat. They beat Wash U and Rose Holman, right? And then they played Whitewater to the wire last week.
Yep.
Carroll played Chicago to the wire last week.
Well, they played tough against Hope too.
Yes. So we've had some battles in terms of the CCIW this year, and it's nice to really, truly be back in that conversation, not be trying to get yourself in that conversation, for the conference to truly be back in that conversation.
In a twist, you're going to play them twice in a week in a 3-game span. I mean, talk about cruel. It's January 17th on the road at Illinois Wesleyan, then on the road at Elmhurst on the 20th, then back home against Illinois Wesleyan on the 24th. I mean, I guess rip the Band-Aid off and get it over with, fine, but no one wants to see that kind of team on essentially back-to-back games in a short time span.
Yeah, I do think that's a tough stretch, because at different times we've both had players out. Last year we both had stud players for us out at different times. And if that falls in that week, that is a rough break for either team. You don't want to see that. You want both teams to be at their best. And so I don't love the fact that they're that close because of the fact that being one of the reasons. You don't want it to be because somebody's injured or something in that case. So here's hoping that everybody's healthy at that point.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't mind. Listen, I know the UAA has a quirk. They go back-to-back weekends with their travel. But for the most part, I'd rather see, especially rivals, they get bookend. I don't want to see them close, and that's in all sports. By the way, quick question. Decatur, if nobody's familiar, dead center of Illinois. You're equal distant from Champaign and the big behemoth Illinois, and equal distant to Springfield, the capital. Kind of far, though, from Chicago. I'm a little closer to St. Louis. Is that a tough area to recruit, especially a college student too, and get them excited to come into that neck of the woods?
It's different. Like we talked about earlier, we got to know who fits us,
Fair. Yeah.
Thankfully for us, we've done a really good job on the academic side. I think our academics are strong, as most D3 schools are, but last year we were number 2 in the country in terms of team GPA. That's going to help. That's going to help pull some people this way. That's pretty impressive. And like I said, it's about finding the right people. I think if Elise Knudsen could have kept playing at her high school for another 4 years, she would have, because she's that loyal. And so she likes to be around her family and friends and play in front of the people that she cares about. Same thing with everybody else that's on our roster. So a lot of our roster is predominantly within 90 minutes to 2 hours, because we know that's the type of kid that fits us. We're trying to find those ones that kind of fall through the cracks under the radar. Realistically, we recruit against a lot more junior colleges than we do a lot of Division III schools.
Interesting. Yeah, the junior college world, I think, is going to change some things a bit with the transfer portals too. I think that's kind of the next evolution. Maybe do a couple years at a junior college, then transfer into a D3 for a 2 or 3 year run. That could be the next evolutionary wave with all of this. Hey, Olivia, I could talk to you forever. Love chatting with you, especially just the idea that you've done so well with that program. It's not like you jumped around to a bunch of different schools and tried to figure it out first. You figured it out when they figured it out, and it's fun to watch. But I got to let you go because it's not fair to rob all your time. I know you need to rob, but I do appreciate it. As always, we give the coach, so the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuned in?
I do want to just send thoughts and prayers to Platteville again. You know, we were just there, tough loss there, and I can't imagine what a lot of them are going through. So I wanted to make a point to, I knew this was coming this time, so I wanted to make a point to just send thoughts and prayers that way. And then again, thanks, Dave, for all that you do for Division III. We do appreciate it and appreciate all the publicity.
Well, thank you, Olivia. Well said about Platteville. We mentioned them last show, and certainly our thoughts are still with them as well. Tough time of year as well. But again, good luck the rest of the way. I'm circling that week in January. I'm going to watch you and Maya a little bit during that stretch. But we look forward to having you back on the show at a later date. Enjoy the rest of the season and the holidays, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Olivia Lett joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline. Appreciate her taking the time to do so. Busy night for her, as all coaches are, and appreciate her finding the time to join us. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll switch back to the men's conversation, and we will have a convo with the interim head coach at Keene State on the men's side. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. Back with plenty more when we come back. The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC 1927. That's NABC.com or NABC 1927 on social media.
Something I discovered in myself is that if I have a goal, I can accomplish it.
It's a well-rounded experience.
At a Division III school, you primarily a student athlete, so the school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual.
It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all. It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
These are your teams, your players, your community of fans. This is where they play, where they practice, where you cheer. At every meet, every event, every game. Your community is passionate, dedicated, supportive. You know the tension of a close game and the thrill of the win. So while you're cheering, keep an eye out for anything out of the ordinary. If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
I learned a lot of valuable lessons playing college football. I never thought about the health benefits of exercise until I actually started to talk to coaches in college. It's not only just for performance, it's for life. My coaches instilled the importance of well-being, not only building up strength, mental health, getting enough sleep, eating properly is all what it is to be healthy. I decided that I want to go into personal trainer and share my knowledge that I obtained in college about physical and mental well-being.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com. And welcome back, everybody, to Hoopsville as we continue to roll along live. Thanks for bearing with a couple of technical gremlins tonight, but certainly a better show. And heck, the voice is holding up, so we'll take that for the win. If you got questions for us, information at the bottom of your screen. We'll wrap up the last segment of the show with a quick look at the top 25 and some news and notes on that and some other things. And if you have any questions, we'll try and answer those as well. Couple quick scoring updates in men's basketball. Oswego defeated St. Lawrence 66-58. Oswego was actually down by 2 at halftime, 26-24, but outscored St. Lawrence by 10 in the second half to win and go 4-0 now. St. Lawrence picks up their first loss. Scranton women absolutely housed Stevens. It was an 89-54 finish. Scranton was leading after the first quarter, after the opening 10 minutes, 30-16. And while that was the highest scoring quarter for either team, Scranton didn't score less than 15 the rest of the game, and Stevens didn't score more than that 16 in the first quarter in any of the quarters and go on to win 89-54 to the Royals, who are now 4-0. Stevens suffers their first loss. They're now 5-1. Up in New England, back into the Little East, which we don't do all that often, but Keene State men's basketball is certainly one we've been keeping an eye on all summer, because not only did they take a loss in the NCAA tournament to Swarthmore on a team that probably really wasn't 100%, but we certainly knew they were frustrated by it. But as a result, interestingly enough, their head coach Ryan Kane was persuaded to go to Johns Hopkins down here in Baltimore and take over a program there. That left David Hastings in control of the Owls. He's got an interesting backstory, and this team is certainly ready to try and tackle and win it all if they can, or at least go a little bit further with David Hastings, at least on an interim level, in charge. We talked to him earlier today. Now joining us on the Hoopsville hotline, it's the head coach of the Keene State Owls on the interim basis for now. It's David Hastings. Coach, first and foremost, thanks for taking the time to join us. I don't know if a year ago in this seat you would have expected to be the head coach of the Keene State Owls, but it's been an interesting year. We'll talk a lot about it, but first and foremost, welcome to the program and congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you inviting me on the program, and yeah, I'm a very blessed individual to be sitting in this chair.
Nothing against Ryan Kane. I love the man, and I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of them down here in the Mid-Atlantic region. But Ryan had a huge personality that I think when people thought of Keene State, they thought of Ryan. They don't think much about the coaching staff. There's some other programs. I got to know the assistants pretty darn well as well. I didn't get to know you as well. We didn't get to understand who you and the rest of the staff were. Give us a sense of kind of where your background is, what got you involved with Keene State, et cetera, and has allowed you to step into this interim role.
Well, first of all, I love Ryan Kane as well. We talk 2-3 times a week. I consider him a true friend in the basketball community. So I think it's outstanding that he had the opportunity to go where he is, and I have the opportunity to be where I am. He was very out there. He was very flamboyant. He was energetic. He was just really out in the forefront of everything. As a staff itself, I thought we all did a great job of doing what we needed to do to get the team to the level that we wanted them to perform at. So there was really no need for anybody else to do, trying to think of the right word here. We didn't need to express ourselves in a way that Ryan was doing it. And our program kind of spoke for itself in that sense.
Fair point. And usually different programs, the way they work, that works. You don't have to know everybody. So listen, I know when everything came to a crashing halt, unfortunately, last season, once again at the hands of Swarthmore, the team wasn't 100%. We knew that, or at least we figured that out at the end of the moment, but certainly had a feeling going in. And I wasn't there, but Ryan Scott talks about, this team was like, we're coming back, man. This is not how this ends for us. We're coming back. We're going to do this again. We're going to knock them off, or whoever it was. We have unfinished business. And at no time in that moment do I ever suspect that Ryan Cain thought he'd be moving on to another job, or players thought that there would be a change, yourselves or all. I mean, it didn't feel like that was at all on anyone's radar. Heck, I don't think any of us thought Josh Leffler was leaving for Cincinnati, which opened the door at Hopkins, which opened the door for Ryan Cain. That all said, interesting offseason. How does a departure of Coach Cain give pause at any point in the offseason, or does it help everyone double down?
Well, I think every point you just made there was fantastic and absolutely true. No one expected any of this to happen, but on the upside, the guys that were coming back were all people that I had a heavy hand in recruiting each one of them. We already had that developed relationship. We already had an established program with a foundation. Ryan and I are different people. We have some different ways that we coach, or some different things that we may do on the court. But in general, we knew that we had what it took to get to that point. And, to meet teams like Swarthmore, when you win, lose, or draw in a game like that, it was still a phenomenal game. And they were a great team. It took a great team to beat a great team. And there's no excuses about our injuries or illnesses or anything else. They deserved it, and we needed to be better than we were last year. And we're hoping this year we can take it another step or two further.
Obviously, the familiarity makes it easy for someone like yourself to take over from the interim status. The players know you. You know the system. You might be a different coach. You might have different styles, but everything is understood. But admittedly, even myself as a top 25 voter, and I did this with Johns Hopkins as well, I went, it's still a coaching change. It's still a change. It is a different personality. It is a different mentality. Maybe you aren't going to run the same stuff Ryan ran. It's not going to be the same Keene State squad that we're used to. So I kind of knocked everyone down a few pegs to see how that would develop. Is that fair? Is it to look at a scenario like yours to say, yeah, this is still not going to be the same Keene State, but we're going to be ourselves and judge us by that?
I did notice you knocked us down a peg or two. I had a number of people that were, I listened to the different podcasts, and there was always a question about the coaching change that was taking place. That can be good and bad. There's no doubt about it. I would like to think that the relationship I have with the players and the style of coaching that I do are going to maintain a certain level. I think so far we've done pretty well with it. The Stockton game was a hiccup, I'm hoping. We came back strong the very next game with Platteville, and we performed well since then. We'll see how it continues to play out throughout the year. But again, pretty hard to say you want to change much for a 28-2 team. I mean, Ryan had us going here. And again, when I say Ryan, I still think it was a collective attitude of everybody within the team, the players, the coaches, all together. We all supported each other and relied on each other. And certainly Ryan was the guiding force on top of that.
My last comment about Ryan is I don't think he knew what the Hopkins schedule was to start the season when he took over the job. I do wonder if he called you guys and said, I've my mistake, I'm coming back. And that's just tongue in cheek. It is, the Hopkins schedule is insane. And they're dealing with their own stuff. But from your perspective, you obviously already knew what this schedule was going to bring. You knew what you guys had accomplished, what you want to accomplish. So what was the goal to the team as you broke camp, as it were, to use an NFL reference, and headed into the season knowing that, A, you're going out to San Diego for a kind of an unknown event. It's existed, but being out in South Dakota is a new thing. I think I said San Diego there for a second. South Dakota. Yeah, the cold's kicking.
We would have rather been in San Diego, maybe.
Yeah, no, I was going to say.
The weather was a little different.
Aberdeen, South Dakota, San Diego, it's slightly different. But what was the mentality? What was the goal? Was it, hey, let's go and knock all the socks off, or play each game at a time, and if we lose, we lose. So be it. We'll figure this out.
Yeah, let me say the tournament out in South Dakota is phenomenally. Small basketball championship classic is outstanding. The way it's run is very good. The facility was number one. We loved it. It was a great opportunity. And as far as the schedules go, Ryan's insane no matter what, because currently we're going to play 4 games in 7 days. and he put that whole schedule together too.
That's true.
With
That's
that
true.
said, with that said, yeah, I mean, I take one game at a time. You know, people ask all the time about what the schedule looks like and who we're playing at certain points in the season. And I'm a little bit older. I'm not a young coach here. I've been around the block, as a couple of the experts have noted a few times about me being around the block. And I take it in jest. I appreciate that. So the fact is, we take one game at a time. The opportunity to go out and play Stockton and Platteville was fantastic. Two really good teams. We got a great experience out there. And we come back and we play really good teams when we come back here. So the idea of playing the best available competition is what we want to do. The idea that our players have been to a certain level and they want to go further along, you know, our goals are there, but I really don't try to get our players to not get too high, not get too low, and definitely don't look far ahead. The most important game is the next one coming.
We talk about the team. Let's talk about the team. Tell us, give us the breakdown. How much did you lose really in the offseason, or how much really came back, and how is this team kind of gelling with anything that's come in new?
Yeah, so we lost one player that actually played 23 minutes a game last year, Jarrett Shishan. He was more of a Swiss Army knife. He did everything well, nothing great. Huge loss to the team as far as what he brought. He was the third leading scorer. He was the third leading rebounder. Most physical kid that we had. And then we graduated three other guys that didn't really play much. So we returned quite a bit. But again, expectations are expectations. You still have to go out and play the game. We're one of only two teams, I think, in Division III that have returning All-Americans. Obviously, Jeff Hunter, everyone knows across the country, 26 double-doubles last year out of our 30 games.
Yeah, a couple,
He's a unique person. Yeah. And Octavio Brito is just a tremendous athlete that scored his 1,000-point already in our first game this year as a junior. He's got a huge upside. We returned the point guard and the off guard, Nate Sayao and Mason Jean-Baptiste. Mason may be the most solid, consistent player, game in and game out, that we have on all aspects of the game of basketball. So we just had to find a fifth starter, which we've gone with a couple different guys this year so far. One that was with us last year, transferred in mid-season, Tameen Dupree, and Alonzo Linton was another one who was with the team last year, but he wasn't actually on the roster. He is rostered this year, and he's been playing really well, along with Spencer Aronson, who may be our best shooter on the team. So we've got a good thing going right now. A lot of people are being involved. I should mention we had a player out injured in the beginning of the year, a point guard, Mike Crothers, who in the last two games I think he's had 19 assists and 2 turnovers. So when you get a guy like that back, they're playing hard. They're playing well. They're playing for each other.
We should mention Hunter and Brito both scoring nearly 19 points a game. Jean-Baptiste, 12.5. And guys like Dupree knocking on the door, double figures as well. Listen, this program and this team has very much had the moniker of the underdog / haven't gotten over the hump, flash in the pan. I'm using some terms I've heard thrown around. Listen, expectations have never been high. Okay, great. You're having a great, wonderful start to the season, but we'll see you in March. Has that changed internally? Are you still driving off of that? Are you still feeding off the we're underrated kind of motif that everyone has for the Owls over the last few years, whether that's true this year or not?
I think that really doesn't come up until it gets nationally. I think within our conference. So I've been here. This is my 8th year. Out of my first 7 years, I think we were in the conference championship 6 times out of those. So I think within our conference, we kind of looked at like we're on top. And I think every team wants to bring their best game when they get to play Keene State. I'm not sure we're the most liked group around, so that helps as well. But that's within the conference. Once we get outside, yeah, I would say we're the underdog card. We're a state school that comes out, and I consider us a bunch of blue-collar lunchbox type players. That's what I try to insist upon the players to understand, that when we go out, we gotta work hard. We're not going to be the most talented ever. We're not going to be the most skilled ever. We're going to go out and we're going to give it 100% each and every time we step on the court. And when we get done, I want everybody to know Keene State was there.
Makes total sense. And speaking of which, you've got Albertus Magnus, a very similar squad in terms of respect us, know we're here. Especially a handful of years ago, St. Joseph's kind of knocked them off a little bit, and they want that respect back. So you got them coming up in a non-conference game coming up on Tuesday. And then you get a couple of home games in conference play. It's an interesting kind of time of year where you're mixing and matching a little bit of the non-conference and the conference. We'll talk about what happens later in December, but is this an important stretch ahead for you?
Yeah, I think it's pretty important between here and the Christmas break. Playing Albertus Magnus tomorrow night is going to be fantastic. They're an undefeated team right now, playing very well. I watched them play Emerson the other night. They're going to be tough. I mean, that's the kind of game that we want. We want to have a good, tough physical game and see how we match up. Hopefully we come out on the side that we want to come out on, but that'll really remain in the players' hands. Do they execute properly, and do we play aggressively enough to contain what Albertus Magnus brings to the table?
And then you'll play Tufts to wrap things up pre-Christmas on the 9th. Then you'll get basically almost a month off before you get back into conference play with a Middlebury non-conference game sprinkled in late in January. How important is this break? You know, no matter how things happen in the next 5 after December 9th before January 3rd, how important is that time going to be for this team to kind of keep the momentum, keep the mentality when there's a lot of other things to be distracted by, including in New England, maybe snow and some pretty lights?
Yeah, well, I'm a firm believer in family. So the idea that we're going to get through that last game with Tufts, have a couple practices, they'll take their midterms and go home and spend some time with their family, I think is what every young person should do and needs. So then we'll bring them back after Christmas. We'll get back into it. And yeah, our conference games will begin. Obviously, Middlebury is always a very tough game for us, and they're playing pretty well this year. And we have to give our best effort there as well.
Hey, a little bit about yourself, in case anyone knows. We have interim on the graphic. They've got acting on the website. It isn't the official job yet. We'll talk about that in a minute. But give me a little bit of your background. I got a kick out of the fact that, A, you're from Western Massachusetts, an area I certainly know well from my prep school days. But at the same time, you're a retired police chief. This basketball thing isn't necessarily number one. It's maybe 1B for a long time. Now that the A is removed, it's become the soul. Tell us a little bit about that background.
Well, I guess you would have to say 1B, although many of my law enforcement community members used to call me coach rather than chief. My email always said coach rather than chief. I was very fortunate to be in law enforcement for a long period of time, 34 years I started out at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, which is a city in itself. And then I had the opportunity to go back to my hometown, which most people aren't aware of it, other than Mount Hermon is in my town. So anybody in the basketball world would know that. And I was the chief there for 24 years. So yeah, 34 years in total in law enforcement, but I've been coaching basketball since my oldest son, who turns 40 Wednesday, he turns 40. I was coaching him since he was in 3rd grade. I've always been involved in athletics and coaching. I've coached at numerous high schools and really all the sports. I just really enjoyed it.
I said 1B because it's basketball. If I figured, I could be a little bit illiterate, but I get what your point is. I mean, that's what I hear from a lot of individuals. Obviously, you're assistant to Ryan Kane, and now you're the acting/interim head coach of this program. Is this a program? Is this what you want to do? Is this where you want to be? Do you want that title made more permanent?
Absolutely. Yeah, I had told Ryan for years I just needed him to call in sick once so I could say that I got to coach a college basketball team. It's been a dream of mine for quite some time. Like I said, I've been here for 7 years with Ryan, 2 years as an assistant and 5 years as the associate head coach. I thought maybe during COVID I was going to have my shot. He got COVID, found out like 2 hours later I had it too. So that screwed that up. No, it's been a lifelong dream. When I say I'm blessed to be able to do this, I am very blessed. I don't do it for anything other than the love of the basketball game. I'm retired. There's a lot of things I don't need that they try to offer. I'm good. I'm doing what I want right here, spending time with these young men, helping to create what's going to be out there in the community, as well as what's on the basketball court.
That's pretty cool. And I can totally see the urge to have Ryan just sit a game so you can get one to yourself. Now you got the whole program to yourself. Obviously, as a state school, not surprising to have the acting/interim title put on for a year before they make an official decision. Certainly not going to prognosticate on what their decisions may be, but do you get the sense this is your program?
Yes, I feel very confident with what's going on. Ryan started the same way when he came here. I don't know if Rob did before Ryan. I don't go that far back. But yeah, I feel very good. I have a great relationship with the players, great relationship with the staff here at Keene State. I love our president. I love our athletic director. And I think things are going well. So the idea of being a state school and being here and dedicating what I can dedicate to this place, I'm good with.
Well, very great experience to chat with you. I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Congratulations to the team on, listen, just the accomplishment in itself, to get to where this program has gone, when I know the goal for a long time was to be here. You just had to get here, and some teams break down in that struggle. So it's great to see that you guys are here, and you're still got the mission in front of you, and I'm expecting to still be talking about the Owls quite a bit later in this year. So thanks for joining us. Congratulations on the job. As always, we give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuned in?
All I would say is that everybody should be blessed to be healthy and safe. I appreciate you having us on this program. Go Owls.
Well put, Coach. Thank you again. Take care of yourself. Have a great holiday season. Have a great basketball season. We'll look forward to talking to you down the road.
Thank you.
Dave Hastings joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline. Appreciate Coach joining us. Great to chat with the former chief of police up there in New England. And we'll fascinated to see how they turn out, right? In the latest top 25, they are now the 7th ranked Owls of Keene State. 4-1 overall. They've got Albertus Magnus ahead on Tuesday, then home against Southern Maine and Westfield State, and then on the road against Plymouth State. Those are 3 games in essentially 5 days, the 2nd, the 4th, and the 6th. And then they'll wrap up the pre-Christmas, the 2023 side of things with a game against Tufts on the 9th. And then they'll take the break until getting back into conference play on the 1st of January against 3rd of January against Castleton. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the show, wrap up our thoughts on the top 25, give you a heads up on what we're doing the rest in the next few weeks as well. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. Back with more after this.
The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC1927. That's NABC.com or NABC1927 on social media.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, as we wrap up our show here on November 27th. Appreciate everybody tuning in and coming on. If you're a podcast member, we finally got our podcast up and running. Sorry for the delay, piecing things together. Not even sure when I say this if we'll be able to, what order we'll put things up, but we'll certainly get our shows up and anything you may have missed from the previous 2 shows. This is the first regular show that's, for podcasts especially reasons, has gone according to plan and normal. If you've got questions for us, last chance. You can interact with us either on our streams on Facebook or YouTube, youtube.com/D3Hoopsville, facebook.com/Hoopsville. You can email us, hoopsville@d3sports.com, or you can join us on the social media avenues, Twitter and Facebook and all of that jazz. Keeping track of things. So far, it's been a little bit quiet, but it's also early in the season, and that's not all that common, to say the least. One thing that came up on the YouTube chat was the conversation about the game between Oswego and St. Lawrence. And if you look at it, a 8-point win by Oswego, winning the second half by 10. They were down at halftime. In a back-to-back games 9 days apart, St. Louis has lost to Williams in overtime 66-58 and lost to Oswego in regulation 66-58. After starting the season 3-0 against Potsdam, Plattsburgh, and St. Joseph's of Long Island. They now get into conference play in 4 days' time against RPI and Skidmore on the road this coming weekend, and then they're home against Clarkson next week, and then back in a non-conference play against Geneseo before they'll get back into conference action. And the person said, and I certainly understand where this comes from, says, Travis says, maybe some Region 3 parity this year. Strong game from SLU against Oswego, up at half, tied or within a possession or 2 until the last 2 minutes. Fouls and overtime loss to Williams, which they led most of. Yes, could be some parity from St. Lawrence. I would love to see them back in the conversation, to say the least. 19-8 last year, certainly a strong year with a 13-5 finish in the Liberty League. 16-10 the year before that. Of course, pre-COVID, they were 8-17. 2 seasons where they didn't win double digits in 3 years. They just haven't been that strength that we expect. And a bit up and down at St. Lawrence. But here's the thing that I key on. I don't key on a game that St. Lawrence plays against an Oswego or a Williams to kind of give me an understanding of the parity. Because, listen, everyone's going to be up, as it were, for a game against a ranked or a team in the national conversation, right? So I expect, there to be quirks where Oswego's going to get everybody's best efforts, and only those who are really struggling are not going to be able to at least give them a good game for most of it. And for St. Lawrence, I would expect them to give Williams and Oswego a good run, and they did in back-to-back games, unfortunately losses. No, it's going to be the games against the RPIs and the Skidmores, though that's not fair on Skidmore, and Clarksons, the Geneseos, the Vassar game, the Bard game. Those are the games for me that are gonna ring more true, not only because they're conference games, but because those are the games that maybe you're not going to be as a team as focused for. It's not a nationally ranked team. It's not one who's in the conversation. It's not one who might be regionally ranked. Can you be up, for that game and be ready to go when the time calls? Or are you going to take losses that make no sense? Ithaca had a good year last year. St. Lawrence was second in the conference. Hobart was third. Okay. But what are you going to do against RPI, Skidmore, Vassar, Clarkson, Rochester Tech, Union, and Bard? What are you going to do against Geneseo? What are you going to do against anybody else who isn't getting the national attention? And that's what's going to tell me more about parity in Region 3. Region 3 is interesting. Rochester's off to a 2-3 start this year. Brockport may not be that power we expect after, their head coach left in the offseason or shortly before the start of this season. are we going to see the SUNYAC be as strong? I don't know. I think Region 3 is got a lot of things we're still waiting to find out. And it's going to take maybe till mid-January before we really understand if Region 3 is going to be better than it usually is, i.e., can it present a solid at-large selection, though we certainly argued it should have 2 years ago in Utica, or really can they produce a second or third at-large selection that's worthy of being in that conversation? And I think it's going to take a little more time and not just SLU playing 2 tough games against Williams and Oswego. And it's not a knock on those guys. I just want to see what they do the rest of the season. And I want to see what everybody else does the rest of the season as well. Top 25s, as we mentioned, are out. They're on the website at d3hoops.com. Certainly worth checking out. A lot of new men's teams in the top 25, 10 of them in fact. Ridiculous voting in this top 25, to say the least. I have no confidence whatsoever that I got more than a handful of these in positions I am comfortable with. I spent a lot of time erasing. I've got teams way lower than I ever thought I would have them, but I don't have room to put them ahead. I got teams that are way higher than I would expect, but I can't argue to put them down lower. Admittedly, I'm surprised. I mean, I left Randolph-Macon in as my 25th because at some point I just needed to pull the trigger on something, and I think those 2 losses were tough losses. I'm not putting a ton of stock in them being somehow not a top 25 team, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm voting for guys and teams that not anybody else seems to be paying attention to. Excuse me. I was wondering how long until the voice was going to shut down on us. Utica's got 3 votes in the top 25, and they're all coming from me. Maybe I'm delusional. I don't know. Something about this Utica team that I'm not counting out. So they're getting 3 votes, and they're coming from me. Somebody's voting for Arcadia in 25th. Someone's voting for Concordia Moorhead 25th. I'm surprised Catholic fell out, but I think it has to do with more teams trying to fit in vote members. I'm a little surprised that Illinois Wesleyan jumped into the top 25 as high as they did. A loss to Mary Hardin Baylor and a loss to Marietta while beating WashU. Okay. Feels a little up and down. I got to a point where I didn't have enough room. And I probably put WashU way too high considering they lost to Illinois Wesleyan. And that's where I got stuck. I got super stuck with a lot of this. I'm like, well, if I really want to vote on that based on that result, well, I got to move them 15 spots down. Well, if I'm going to do that, who am I going to fill into the other 14 spots? Because I can make that argument with everybody else. Really difficult vote. And again, I'm not confident at all other than a handful of teams. Hamden-Sydney second. I've got them 4th. I'm voting higher than many on Case Western Reserve, but again, I'm voting high on some others that maybe I'm losing my mind. So, oh, very nice. Travis points out Utica beat Ithaca at Ithaca tonight. Precedent voting on your part, Dave. Thank you. I meant to look that score up, and I totally missed it. Where was it? There it is. Yeah, Utica 82, Ithaca 71. Yeah, there's something about Utica that just is speaking to me. You know, obviously back-to-back 23 win campaigns is part of that. I like what Sean Coffey's doing. Who knows how much longer they're going to be in Division III for that matter. Nothing to write home about. The loss to Morrisville State, I moved them down my poll. But I thought they played pretty well. And we're going to a good test against Hamilton coming up on the 7th of December. Cortland will be a good test on our new head coach on the 16th of December. Unfortunately, that's about where Utica's tests are going to end. I think the Empire 8 is going to be tough. Don't get me wrong. I think Nazareth will be another tough team. St. John Fisher will be difficult this year. I know Naz is off to a 2-3 start, but there's never a time Broderick's teams are not ready. St. John Fisher's off to that 3-2 start with a loss to Hobart and Penn State Harrisburg. Penn State Harrisburg, a team I wanted to vote in. I couldn't find a hole for them. Top 25 is tough this year, man. Really, really tough. It's been tough for a number of years, but I've got teams where I didn't think I'd have them that low. I got Christopher Newport 20th. They're 5-2. There was a part of me that wanted to keep them 10th, and I probably could have. I could have moved everybody around and kept them 10th. It's more about I'm just worried about injuries. If they're back and healthy, then I'll move them back up. But I'm a little worried about injuries. But it's going to be fascinating to see how this all breaks down. I don't vote in the women's side, but I think the women's side is interesting this year. I'm still trying to get my finger on a few teams. I mean, Smith already took a loss this year. That's interesting. Texas already took a loss this year. That's interesting. Trine's already taken a loss. DeSales has already taken a loss. Hope's already taken a loss. Mary Washington's already taken a loss. There's some losses that have popped up early on the women's side that surprised me, to say the least. Quick update: we will not be on the air again on Thursday because we'll be down at the soccer championships for women and men in Division III, and I have a meeting of another job that has popped up for that night. Would have been a little hard if I wasn't traveling. There was a basketball game that night, so we would have done an earlier show anyway. But nonetheless, we will not have a show Thursday. We will be back on the air next Monday. And we will have a few guests, and we'll get our men's panel on the air to talk about the opening month of the season. If you're wanting to know when we'll get the women's panel, I got to talk to the guys, but I'm hoping we can get them on in 2 weeks' time. We'll start our Monday-Thursday run of shows, as long as I'm still feeling all right to do it, next week as well. And we'll go from there. If you got guest ideas or you think of a segment that you think we should do, email us, hoopsville@d3sports.com. Let us know about it. We'll certainly consider it. I want to thank all of our guests tonight. Caleb Kimbrough from Hamden-Sydney, Jenna Cosgrove from Rhode Island College. Really want to thank those two. They were scheduled to be on the very first show of the season, and due to our technical issues, couldn't join us, and then couldn't, for scheduling issues, join us the last show. So I appreciate them sticking around and getting on the air with us this week. Also want to thank Olivia Lett at Millikin, and I want to thank Dave Hastings at Keene State, and I want to thank the sports information directors and staff and offices at all those institutions for their help as well. Some of them have gone a little extra to help us do our work a little bit easier, and we certainly appreciate it, to say the least. And with that, we're going to sign off because my voice is going. I got nothing left in me. I apologize. Just don't have anything else we can talk about, so I got to roll. But we look forward to talking to you next week. And if you feel like it, tune into the soccer championships. Ira Thor and I are on the men's side. Jeremy and Monica will be on the call on the women's side. Looking forward to that. The men's side is a Final Four no one really had penciled in. I'm quite confident. Looking forward to seeing how that all plays out. Thanks to Pat Coleman and the entire crew at D3Hoops.com, as always, for their assistance. I want to thank our other partners as well. Look forward to working with them as we solidify things here for the future of this show. And with that, we're signing off. You've been listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks to our guests for coming on the air. Hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to catching you next Monday here on Hoopsville. Because remember, if you want to talk about Division III basketball, you've got to listen to Hoopsville. Good night, everybody.